The glass was halfway to my lips when he said it. To Elena, Ryan murmured, his voice warm with champagne and candlelight, for making this the best year of my life. Every head at our anniversary table turned toward me, except mine. Because the name he'd just toasted wasn't mine. It was hers. I froze with the flute trembling against my bottom lip, the bubbles stinging my skin like tiny accusations. 10 of our closest friends sat in stunned silence around the linen-draped table at La Belle Époque, the upscale Seattle restaurant overlooking Puget Sound. The string quartet in the corner kept playing, oblivious. Ryan's smile faltered only for a fraction of a second before he tried to recover. I meant Ellie, he corrected quickly, laughing it off like a harmless slip. Obviously. To my beautiful wife, Ellie. But the damage was done. The name Elena had already floated across the table and lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. I'm Ellie Harper, 34, senior graphic designer at a boutique agency in downtown Seattle. Ryan and I had been married 8 years, together 11. We lived in a cedar-shingled house on Queen and Hill with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Space Needle that still took my breath away on clear nights. On paper, we were the couple people envied. Creative careers, no kids by choice, spontaneous weekend trips to the San Juan Islands, matching sourdough starters we'd named after Star Wars characters. Lately, though, the house had started feeling larger. Ryan, a partner at a mid-sized architecture firm, was working late on a legacy project. Some mixed-use development in South Lake Union that supposedly demanded every spare hour. I'd stopped waiting up. I'd stopped asking detailed questions. I told myself it was maturity, trusting the man I'd promised forever to. But trust, I was learning, can curdle into avoidance if you leave it unattended too long. After the toast, the evening limped forward. Conversation restarted in careful fragments. Someone complimented the seared scallops. Someone else asked Ryan about the project timeline. I smiled when expected, nodded when required, but inside I was replaying that single word, Elena, on an endless loop. I knew an Elena worked at his firm. She was newer, maybe 28, hired as a junior designer last spring. Ryan had mentioned her in passing. Bright, talented, understands his vision. I'd met her once at the company summer picnic. Tall, auburn hair, quick laugh. She'd seemed polite, nothing more. By the time dessert arrived, individual chocolate soufflés that rose perfectly because of course they did, I couldn't swallow another bite of pretense. I waited until we were home. The Uber ride up the hill was quiet except for Ryan humming along to whatever playlist the driver had on. I watched the city lights smear past the window and felt something inside me hardening, like wet cement left out in the cold. Inside our house, I kicked off my heels in the entryway and walked straight to the kitchen. Ryan followed, loosening his tie. "Babe, I'm really sorry about earlier," he started. Total brain fart. Too much champagne on an empty stomach. I poured myself a glass of water from the fridge dispenser, letting the motor whir fill the silence. "Who is she to you?" asked, keeping my voice level. He blinked. "Elena. She's just..." "Don't say just a colleague, Ryan. You toasted our 10th anniversary to another woman's name. In front of everyone we know." He exhaled through his nose, leaned against the marble island. "It was an accident. Accidents like that don't happen in a vacuum." I set the glass down harder than intended. "You've been thinking about her enough that her name sits right on the tip of your tongue when you're supposed to be celebrating us." His shoulders sagged. For a moment I thought he might deny it, spin some elaborate excuse. Instead he looked at the floor. "She's important to the project," he said quietly. "That's not what I asked." He met my eyes then, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Guilt mixed with resignation. "We've been spending a lot of time together," he admitted. "Late nights. Takeout in the office. It's intense when you're trying to win a big commission." Waited. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Things happened. A couple of times. The air left my lungs in a slow leak. Not shock exactly. More like confirmation of a suspicion I'd been nursing for months. How many is a couple? 3. Maybe 4. His voice was barely above a whisper. I nodded once, as if filing the information away for later. And emotionally, he hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. Yes, he said finally. I think I'm in love with her. The sentence landed between us like a stone dropped into still water. I watched the ripples spread. I should have screamed, should have thrown something. Instead, I felt an eerie calm settle over me. Say it clearly, I told him. For the record. He swallowed. I'm in love with Elena. I don't think I've been in love with you for a long time. There it was. The brutal truth I demanded. Not, I never loved you. That would have been easier to dismiss as cruelty. This was worse. A slow erosion, a quiet falling out of love while I was still very much in it. I walked past him toward the stairs. Where are you going? He asked. To pack a bag. I'll stay at Mara's tonight. Ellie. I stopped on the third step and looked back. You don't get to ask me for anything right now. Mara, my oldest friend from college, didn't ask questions when I showed up at her Capitol Hill apartment at 1 a.m. She just handed me pajamas and a toothbrush and let me cry on her couch until the tears ran dry. The next weeks were a blur of logistics and grief. Ryan moved into the guest room temporarily, while we figured things out. He suggested counseling. I suggested separate bank accounts first. I kept going to work because quitting my job wasn't an option. I designed logos and brand guidelines for startups while my own life's branding, wife, partner, future mother maybe someday, crumbled. Some nights I sat on the back deck staring at the city lights and wondered who I even was without the identity of Ryan's wife. We'd met at 23. I'd built my adulthood around us. Without that scaffolding, I felt weightless in the worst way. One Thursday in early October, I came home early to find Ryan on the phone in the kitchen. No, I understand, he was saying softly. I miss you too. Yes, soon. I promise. He ended the call when he saw me. That was her, he said, unprompted. As if honesty now could erase months of lies. He nodded. Are you leaving? He looked surprised, like the question hadn't occurred to him yet. I don't know. I don't want to hurt you more than I already have. That ship has sailed, I said. We stood there in the kitchen where we'd once danced to old Motown records while making pasta. I think you should go, I told him. Not because I hate you. Because staying here pretending we're in limbo is worse than the truth. He started to protest, then stopped. Maybe he saw something in my face that hadn't been there before. Resolve. 2 weeks later he moved out. He took half the furniture, the espresso machine we'd splurged on in Italy, and the sourdough starter named Leia. I kept the house, the dog, a rescue mutt named Juno, and the quiet. The first month alone was brutal. I wandered room to room like a ghost. I cooked for one and ate over the sink. I stopped wearing my wedding ring but kept it in a small ceramic dish on my dresser, unsure what ritual would finally let me put it away. Then something shifted. Not dramatically but steadily. I started hiking on weekends again, something I'd loved before we coupled up. I drove out to Discovery Park at dawn and walked the loops until my legs burned and my mind quieted. I took a pottery class on Tuesday nights. My bowls came out lopsided, but they held soup without leaking, and that felt like victory. I redid the guest room, now my room, painting it a deep forest green and hanging prints from local artists I'd always admired but never bought because Ryan preferred minimalist white walls. One evening in November, Mara dragged me to a gallery opening in Pioneer Square. I wore a dress I'd bought on impulse, emerald silk that made me feel like someone new. While sipping wine and pretending to understand abstract sculpture, I met Julian. He was a photographer covering the event for a magazine. We ended up talking for hours about light and composition and the way Seattle rain turns everything cinematic. He asked for my number. I gave it without hesitation. We're taking it slow. Coffee dates that stretch into dinners. Long walks where we talk about everything and nothing. I told him early on that I'd just come out of a marriage. He listened without trying to fix anything. I still think about Ryan sometimes. I heard through mutual friends that he and Elena moved in together quickly, that the big project fell apart when the developer pulled funding, that they're working through some things. I don't wish them ill. I just don't wish for updates anymore. The anniversary toast happened 14 months ago. I still flinch when someone says the name Elena in passing, but the sting is duller now, more scar than wound. Here's what I've learned, and what I want to pass along if you're listening. Love isn't owed permanence just because it once existed. People can fall out of love as quietly as leaves change color. You might not notice until they're on the ground. But dignity, that's yours to keep or surrender. No one can take it unless you hand it over. I didn't beg Ryan to stay. I didn't demand he choose me over her. I simply chose myself when he no longer did. There's a specific kind of strength that comes from walking away with your head up, even when your heart is in pieces. It doesn't roar. Just keeps moving forward one ordinary day at a time. Some nights I sit on the same deck where I once questioned my entire identity. Juno asleep at my feet, city lights glittering below. I pour a glass of wine, not champagne, and I toast quietly. Telly, for making this the hardest and somehow the truest year of my life.